Yo, hey, what's up? So, listen, yeah, I flew all the way up here, all the gear, cameras, and everything, only to not plug in my laptop while we were filming this interview. So, the audio's there, but the video's gone. So, while you listen to Bam tell this wisdom, just watch some of his music videos.
So some things just kind of come from like not being a jerk to people and treating them like humans, whether you know what they can do for you or not. Just being a good person, which is how I landed access to All-Star Weekend. So shout out to homie BJ, who works with some incredible nonprofits and somehow or another got us into a poker tournament with Kenny the Jet and Charles Barkley. So I got to go to All-Star Weekend. Now the problem is All-Star Weekend was also Valentine's Day weekend, so I ain't get to stay for the game, nor could they give me tickets to that. But the point is, I got to see a lot of friends. Malski, who's just running it right now. Squint, who... How do I explain Squints? So I did a book before Terraform called I Am Becoming. And we did it was photojournalism and poetry. But every promo picture I had up until recently were pretty much Squint shot them. Squint works with Beast Mode, works for the Warriors, works with Steph Curry, Andre Ward. Squint is like he's one of the most humble and most talented and most connected persons I've ever met. He'll be like, you need to get in, text Steph. I was like, you want me to text Stephen Curry? Yeah, just text him. And I'm like, man, you text him. He's like, bro, he likes you, just text him. And I'm like, all right. He has never handed me his phone number. So I am not going to text Stephen Curry. You can, I'm not. Anyway, but what that meant was I was able to be up in the Bay Area to actually do our first Terraform show and actually set it up like a video interview with the Kuya Bambu de Pistola, Bambu, credible rapper, part of Soul Assassins, and started a label called Beat Rock Music. I just want to talk about like the rapper to activist pipeline. It's an interesting thing because it's like sometimes rappers get rich and they just become Kanye's or Elon's, or they just go that route where it's like, I'm rich and nothing else matters. But then some of us get completely radicalized. Like I mean, we just watched the Kendrick and Drake narrative. Like they came up at the same time and then had this split. And Kendrick was like, I'm not with all this. I want to be this other person. Drake was like, give it all. He wanted all. The money, the cars, and the clothes. He just wants to be successful. That's a Drake song. Anyway, y'all already know where I stand. But I think there's some interesting things about like, you know, one, the power of hip hop, the hip hop we fell in love with, and then what actually happens off the mic and the type of activism that can come from just starting with just you being passionate about your art. So I happened to be up in San Francisco, which just worked out perfectly, and I was able to tap in with the homie Bambu. He's been on the show before, but like we were still kind of figure out who we were then. But we in the game now. All right, here we go. All right, here we go.
Hey.
All right, I've already done all the introduction. Wait, am I recording over here? Yes, I've already done all the introductions before you got here. So people already know who you are. This is the first time we've done like an on-site.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Last time we did Hood Politics was over the phone, right?
Yeah, it was a pandemic.
Yeah, pandemic time.
Yeah. The show's grown a lot. I feel like I found...
Congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Really found a direction. Like, I feel like, I mean, it's like anything. You have to do enough of them to really figure out what you're trying to say. And I think what the hope has always been like informative education, and then ultimately to see like the end goal is to see someone run for city council that was a part of like K4P. You know what I'm saying? That was like, you know what I mean? That was one of us that is like, actually, let's do this. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But there's a pipeline of that, right? Like there's a way to get there that I feel like in some ways hip hop, just being as young as it is, we haven't seen those statesmen yet. Like we're in a season now where a lot of our elder statesmen are being a little strange.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
forgetting where they came from.
Kind of forgetting where they came from. Yeah. Just some really odd things. But that being said, one of the questions I get a lot is like, people really wanting to be involved, people feeling overwhelmed, especially from young artists, and being like, you know, how do I do more than just rap? You know what I'm saying? And they're only hearing it from me. So I know my narrative. I know how I got to where I was, you know what I'm saying? But like, I think it started when I think you had like posted somewhere that like somebody had challenged you about like, what are you really doing? And that super resonated with me and was like, okay, I need y'all to hear this story. You know what I'm saying? And last year I started doing this thing that I was calling like, I was trying to do them once a month between the chaos that was happening in the news. It was called like the Terraforming series, where it's like, let me just find people that are actually putting good in the world, you know what I'm saying, and bring y'all
on the ground.
Yes. You know, in between stuff we gotta talk. Sometimes you need a break, man.
Right.
You know, you need a break from the chaos. So that's why you're here, man. And so first of all, let's see if we can rewind the clock back as far as possible to be like, I know it's an odd question, but be like your introduction to hip hop.
Sure.
Your introduction, like you're from the city like me, but like where did that start?
I mean, I'd always rhymed, you know what I mean,
course.
as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
13, 12, 13.
For sure.
And then, you know, open mic circuits, things like that, you know, trying my hand at it. But I still had one foot in the life. So, you know, I got locked up for armed robbery at 16. When I got out, the options for me were slim.
Yeah.
And then there was a judge who strongly suggested I join the Marine Corps.
Word.
And when a judge strongly suggests, that means the next time I see you, you're doing big numbers. You know what I mean? So it's like, all right, you know, so I joined the Marine Corps. My big takeaway from that, as far as hip hop is concerned, is that I was, you know what it's like being from LA, you kind of just listen to LA shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Like, Freestyle Fellowship was it. Like, there was no other like backpack rap, you know, quote unquote cypher rap outside of that, you know?
Bro, don't lose your thought. But when I started touring, the amount of I realized I was like, I'm so arrogant. I don't believe in anyone's underground.
Straight up, yeah.
Like, no one's underground as good as ours.
Straight up. So like, you know, being in the military, I was introduced to Cash Money really early. I was introduced to, you know, cats from Alaska who were doing stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is blowing my mind. So it influenced my style a lot, you know. So when I came home, I think my style had grown. So I started working on songs, and then I think that just helped me kind of grow as an MC. So I put this project out called Self-Untitled. You know, it was progressive or liberal, I should say. You know, and it came out and the community gravitated to it. And when I put it out, I was really on some like, this ain't for Filipino people. This is like for everybody. You know, I was trying to do the kumbayas, everybody. But the community that clung to it was a Filipino community. You know, they were like, yo, that's,
you know what? Let me stop you there, man. I feel like it's such a bizarre, from my own experience, like, and I didn't until I was an adult think about it from the Filipino perspective, being like things that, how do I say this? Like, y'all was always there. I just never thought about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, from leaving South Central to going to San Gabriel Valley and being in like Valinda, La Fuente, like, you know, and even just little stuff like on the way to school, there was a Goldilocks. I never thought about the fact that was a whole ass other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it was just, in our mind, it was like I live in a Mexican hood, so I just thought about it, and at least to my untrained eye, I was like, well, y'all, you're the darker Mexicans that talk like black dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like, feel me?
Yeah.
And so I just
especially out that way.
Especially out that way. So I never thought about it. And then here's a funny story. One of my OGs, he used to always talk about the first time he saw a gun was this guy named Junior from Pinoy Real. And he put it in so many songs, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about somebody whose stepmother is Filipino. My father's in Philippines right now, right? And I just did not connect the dots that Pinoy Real was Pinoy. Like, I just never thought about it. You know what I'm saying? And then when it all came together, it turns out like I again never thought about it till I was a full grown adult. There was a guy that lived 8 houses down from us on our block that my older sister and her friends used to say, oh, he's so fine. His name was Junior. So then I'm telling this story to my OG. He was like, was Junior Filipino? And I was like, I don't know. So I had to text my sister, was Junior Filipino? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh shit.
It might have been him.
It might have been him. Anyway, so I say that to say that the fact that the community attached to it, to me, it was like, it wasn't that we were actively trying to overlook this community.
Sure.
I'm saying, look, again, Filipino stepmom, living in West Covina, and friends with breakdancers. I just didn't think about the fact that, like, oh my God, y'all were there the whole time. So I just wonder if that's like.
But I was trying to get away from that.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Like, again, I'm from the oldest LA Filipino gang in existence, Satanas, and, so my cultural perspective comes from that lens.
Yeah.
And, I'm embedded with it. It's my culture,
totally.
But once I discovered hip hop did not align with what we were doing as Filipino Americans. So once I fell in love with it, and I went to school and grew up with all my best friends are black, you know what I mean? So I just grew up in that environment. And so when I wrote and recorded this album, I didn't write it with the mindset of like, I'm gonna fucking grab the Filipino community and shake them up. It was more like, accept me, hip hop. You know what I mean? It was more about that. So I didn't think the hip hop community would understand my perspective as a Filipino, but I knew that they would understand if I was talking about neighborhood shit. We all go through that, like you just said. Like we were all in the same neighborhood. We all police brutality. That's all something we deal with. So I was like, let me just focus on that. But like I said, the Filipino community is what gravitated to me and was like, yo, let's grab this dude and figure him out and see what he's about. So then I eventually, I had always been going to CPOT, which is the Filipino Community Center in historic Filipino town. It's an acronym for Search to Involve Filipino Americans, which is still there. It's the best community center for our community, I think.
It's amazing.
And so I'd already been going there, and so there was this huge show for a brother we lost named Arnold, and this guy named Kiwi was headlining the show. And everybody was telling me, yo, man, you got to see this dude Kiwi, dog. You be on that kind of hype, And I was like, as an MC, I'm like, I don't care about that, dude. I'm like, let's see.
What I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, let's see what this dude's about, And I opened the show. It was like a 40-person lineup. So I opened the show and he closed it. So I'm waiting the whole night. All right, when's he going to show up? He showed up and I was blown away. I was like, oh, this dude's like, he found a way to embrace his Filipino-ness while at the same time grabbing everybody else from any other culture in LA and making them all do the call and responses. And he was just, I get goosebumps thinking about it. He changed me. I was like, okay, I need to work with this dude. So when I started working on other music and before I dropped my first album, I said, I got to have you. And then we went on tour together, a college tour. It was called the Native Guns Tour. And then we eventually it went from like us doing separate sets and then doing a couple songs together to like, by the end of the tour, we were like doing, we weren't even doing our own songs. We were doing like Native Gun songs. And we became a group, eventually picked up DJ Fatrick. And I still wasn't organized or organizing. He was. He was like a pioneer. Him, Faith Santia, they were pioneers as far as cultural artists are concerned, working with grassroots people's organizations. I wasn't there. I wasn't in that headspace.
And so, interjecting the story here. So I had already knew Faith. because of poetry.
Right.
So
she was doing the Rock the Vote campaign.
all that.
She was in magazines. You're like, oh, who is this? You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then like obviously like there's for me like the glue was, you know, Irene, you know what I mean? So you know, for y'all that don't listen, Irene, I've mentioned her on multiple albums, you know, just little, you know, couple years younger to her, just like mesmerized, like that. There's a whole island of girls like you. Are you serious? Where is this place? Yeah. And but that for me too, like I had never seen, and so Faith kind of fit in that to me. I had never seen revolutionaries that weren't black. I only knew black ones, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the few sort of like Mexican organizers around like, you know, the Cesar Chavez stuff and the groups. But my understanding of like, no, we trying to burn the system down. They was all black people, you know? So seeing kind of what was happening, I guess, I'm assuming this is around the same time as I was more like kind of learning that like, oh, there's a whole world here. There was like, you know, by the time I went to college, it was like I was, you know, I don't even remember the friendship games. You know what I'm saying? You know, all that. And because I was already in a breaking crew. I know you remember.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was there for the girls.
Do they still do friendship games?
I don't know. But I was already in a breaking crew that, you know, because by this time I had already decided kind of the same thing, that like the fork in the road of like, am I going to keep doing, we're going to keep climbing over fences and writing my name on walls and getting in trouble, or am I going to take this serious? You know what I'm saying? So by this time I was like, I just looked around and I was like, all my black friends went G-Funk on me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, the B-boys, they were all Filipino. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for me, that introduced me to this whole world. And then I learned of the family. Then I learned, my understanding of the culture of the Philippines was through hip hop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that and like, you know, my prom date. You know what I'm saying? Because that's where I'm from. You know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't know that origin story. I'm interested in like, so where because I do remember the conversations with like my friends. Me and Merce talk about it to where at some point they like, oh, he weird cuz, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you reading now.
Right,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
Like I'm interested in that conversation. Like where was the homies feeling for that one?
Well, you know, I admired Kiwi.
Yeah.
And Kiwi was also from a neighborhood growing up. You know what I mean? He's from a neighborhood called Jeff Rocks, which traditionally didn't get along with our neighborhood. So, but he was part of the life, and I'm watching him transition as an adult, and kind of adopting this new gang of like community organizing. I was very attracted to that, but I still wasn't ready to put my foot in, because I'm an MC, so I'm very ego driven and very like prideful and like, I don't need to be accountable to nobody. You know what I mean? Like I'm conscious.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm putting goodness in the world.
Right. I'm the one doing it. So like I said, we were on tour, and at some point we got to New York, and I was sitting with a bunch of the sisters from Ugnayan, another organization out there, and this woman named Ree, who, you know, I love her to death. Like Ree is my heart, and she's down in San Diego right now, but I met her, and we were at this table, and everybody was kind of, I was at the stage of my career, and was like, oh, you're Bambu, you're awesome. And she was like, okay, like, who you with? You know, I'm like, you know, I'm from this neighborhood, and she's like, but who are you organizing? Who are you accountable to?
Wow.
You're making all this like music, but like who's keeping you in check? Like,
about to change.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's like keeping you in check, and who's informing you of all this stuff? And I'm like, well, you know, I pick it up from homies here and there, you know what I mean? I work with KMB in LA, kind of, you know, and it was just straight out like, well, that music is very weightless, you know what I mean? Like you're not accountable to nobody. It doesn't really mean anything, you know? Yeah. And I was like,
because it really hits the like, it hits on both levels in the sense of like, okay, you saying you from this block, I go to that block and don't nobody know you.
Right.
Then where are these stories coming from? You know what I mean? So it was kind of, so it resonates too, where it's like, you talk about all this change, all these like, you know, you want to see this. Okay, so what do you?
Right. what are
where
you
did
actually
that come
doing?
from?
You know what I mean? Like, what are you
exactly.
actually doing? What's the goal of your music?
Yeah.
And I didn't really have an answer. To make other people conscious. For what?
To do.
You know, so everybody just kind of...
For the purpose
right,
of...
for what? And I didn't really have an answer. So then I kind of brought this up to Kiwi, and I was like kind of bothered, you know? Because, again, I was infatuated with Rhea. I was like, oh, she is somebody special. You know what I mean? And for her to tell me that, it really hurt. You know, I was like, I'm talking to Kiwi. And it wasn't just her. It was the whole table of people kind of like, Come
on, love me.
Right.
What
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And still in my patriarchal mind, I'm like, wow, these women talking to me this way. You know what I mean?
We ain't got there yet. We hadn't got there yet.
I wasn't there yet. I was like, why are they challenging me in this way? You know? And so I brought it up to Kiwi, and he's like, well, you should just organize. He's like, you should go, and when we get home, because we were in Boston at the time, he's like, when you get home, you should sit down and fill out that application and take your oath and, you know, really get out there and start organizing. And I did. As soon as I got home, I got with the group, the organization Kabataan Makabayan, which is KMB, which translates to Pro People Youth. And I got to work, you know, and then that became the primary, and the music was the secondary, you know, where it was flipped before. And so now I was using my music as the cultural arm for this work that I was actually doing on the ground. So, you know, I had worked my way all the way up to the Secretary General of that organization, and you know, it really did hold me accountable. Like it really, like I would say something on a record, put it out, and somebody would tug at me and say, hey man, like you probably shouldn't have said this. You probably should have said this. Or this will affect people back home in the movement in this way. And it was good for me.
Wow.
You know,
good.
like I'm like, and that's kind of where the growth comes from.
So let me ask you some more like logistical, like practical questions. So like I'm remembering the things that, you know, questions that people have asked me. So it's like literal like time of day, you know, in the sense that like, well, you still got to pay the rent. You know what I mean? So like me explaining, I'm like, no, I still worked. Like I still had a job. You know what I mean? Right. And then since this is strictly volunteer, how to balance those things. So that's the first thing I want to ask. Like, so if you could think back to like how you were managing your time. Now, granted, like single, no wife, no kids at the time. So I was really able to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, same boat.
But, and then having to now like learn how to like sort of calibrate my time to be like, you know, that's, I always say like, man, the marches are for the young knees. Like, you know what I'm saying? But that doesn't mean I'm not involved. So anyway, so like, I want to ask about the practical part of like those beginning stages. And then secondly, like what were some of the things that you did? A lot of times we say like, oh, we were organizing. What does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah.
So back then, I mean, I made my money. I worked in reality television. I was a video logger. You know, and that kind of informed. It was still in the world of Hollywood media. This is after I got out of the Marine Corps. It just came home from the war. And I tried to be a paramedic. Didn't really work out for me. You know, dealing with adults who are hurt are different than dealing with children and you know, someone's old grandma. That's a completely different world. It kind of messed me up. And I was dealing with a lot of PTSD. So I got into Hollywood, a whole different beast, but you know, being from LA, that's like a natural
I was gonna say like
you'll find a job.
You're gonna find it. I always try to explain that to people. I'm like, that's really like
you'll find it.
Years work.
So I was doing that for a long time, but because I was organizing with folks, I got into the nonprofit world, which was a pretty easy. You know, most of those people that were organizing in grassroots people's organizations also had jobs as, you know, in 501c3. So I naturally jumped into that. People's Core, which is People's Community Organization for Reform and Empowerment, is where I kind of thrived. And I always talk about that being like my dream job. I really enjoyed it. And here I'll give you some concrete stuff that we did there. So we, you know, there was a big lawsuit on the tobacco industry. So part of their retribution was they'd have to distribute bread to all these community organizations to do anti-smoking campaigns. We took that and we said, okay, we're going to Artesia, we're going to Cerritos, and we're going to do an anti-multi-unit housing, anti-smoking in multi-unit housing campaign.
Wow. Okay.
And we did that. We went in there and we organized door to door. We're knocking on people's, hey, you know, like someone smoking in apartment B could affect someone in apartment C because it's centralized air. And then we would disguise that in creating small people's organizations. We'd go from there to say, hey, you know, the tobacco industry, they kind of do this. And then by the end of their meeting, they're talking about capitalism and how like hyper-capitalism is destroying their community. And we bounce. You know, so there you go. We did it. We got a community org built, and some of them are still working to this day, you know. So those kind of things, those are concrete things that we did with money that was given to us, and we would just disguise it and reroute it.
Yeah.
On the grassroots organizational level, our goal was to connect the issues that were happening locally to the issues happening in the Philippines. So raising the awareness, and then getting those few that kind of rose up, grabbing them, getting them organized, getting them in the organization to start doing the work, and then just helping it spread, you know what I mean? And then, you know, raising support for the movement that was happening in the Philippines. You know, there's still a movement happening in the Philippines. We have one of the longest standing revolutions on the planet, you know what I mean? So
we did an episode on old boy that was that they just captured, that was running the church cult, and then built the homie's hilarious. He was a full on like Pentecostal preacher.
I'm not hip.
Oh, bro, I gotta send you. It's
send it
funny. It's like he's a bastard. Like, he's a horrible human being, but the shit is funny. And he ended up becoming best friends with the old
the last president.
Last president's wife.
Duterte. Oh, okay.
Yeah. The homegirl with all the dresses.
Yeah. Oh, Imelda Marcos.
Yes,
yeah,
Marcos.
Yeah,
He ended up being cool with them, and that's really what kept him safe for a while. But now that they
terrible people,
yes, horrible human
people.
beings.
Yeah.
But man, anyway, that's I'm off topic. But yeah.
So, but that was kind of what the you know, all of our OGs were fighting that regime. They were fighting the Marcoses. Yeah. So, you know, we learned a lot of lessons from that. And I'm gonna get to the other question you asked. So, you know, you mentioned just letting young knees and and that's really true. It's more to me. It's more about getting out the way as an elder.
Facts.
You know, like let the youth. I don't know what it's like to organize in a time of crazy social media.
Yes.
Now, I'm from door to door, knocking on the door, going to colleges, breaking into classes, and talking to the. You know, I'm from that. I don't know how to navigate this space, and I shouldn't know how to do that. And I should kind of inspire and hold up the youth who do know how to do that. You know, the youth ceiling is like 35, they say, which is crazy to me, right? Right. But they say you can organize youth up until 35. I say, like, stay out of it when you hit 30. But, you know, so, you know, that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah.
You know, I support folks. Like, I got a show coming up tomorrow. I'm, you know, opening up tables for a lot of these younger folks to come and organize and grab folks. Because the ultimate goal of my music is to get people to organize.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need fans.
Yeah.
You know, we need comrades more than I need fans, you know.
Yeah. I think one thing that really resonated with me was, like, I found that what sort of worked well with sort of my gifting, what I was good at, is like in like recognizing talent, you know what I'm saying? In just finding those hungry, like, you know, that I think probably the same for you, they gravitated to you anyway. One, right? How you carried yourself and what we was talking about anyway. And for me, a lot of the stuff, it came out of my work anyway. So like when I, like, fresh out of college, I worked at Eastlake. So I just worked in juvenile halls, you know what I'm saying? So that obviously was like, well, there's already an audience here of people who want to hear something different, you know? So then out of that, you know, you start helping them build their own communities and stuff like that. And then from Eastlake, then I was like, man, I taught at Camp Rocky. I taught all these camps, and then finally landed at this school in Pomona. And then there, I just fell into one of the youngest teachers, you know, when obviously I'm black, I'm from the city. So like I fell into a lot of the gang intervention stuff over there, you know, and you just, just because I knew where I was, you know what I'm saying? Like it'd be little stuff, like there's a big chunk of our audience is from California. So I could be real specific about stuff like this, where like I remember the school was trying to set up a after school thing at the Boys and Girls Club on Mission. Right, so it was like Mission and Holt, or no, Mission and Gary. So it's Gary and Mission, and I remember some of the administrators were like, "Why aren't these kids going?" And I was like, "Well, you have to cross 10th Street."
Right.
She's like, "What?"
They
And I was
get
like,
it. Yeah.
"You can't. You have to cross 10th Street."
Yeah.
Like I was like, "They're not. You either have to have 3 of these places." Or maybe you shouldn't work here. You know what I mean? So there was those friendships, you know what I mean, that sometimes it just started off as being like I was just the cool teacher, you know, dovetailed into like essentially radicalizing these kids.
Sure,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it ain't too far off. I always say gangs are just community organizations. You know what I mean? That's really all they are. They haven't been brought, the awareness hasn't been brought to a lot of them to like, these street beefs are real beefs, first of all. I always got to say that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of elders look at them as like, it's just silly kids, but these beefs are generational, and they're very real. People have lost uncles and aunts to this violence. And it is not as simple to say, let's just stop the violence. It's not that easy. There's wounds that need to be healed, and there's trauma that needs to be
You sit
addressed.
a Ukrainian and a Russian down and tell them to just stop the violence.
Right. It's not that simple. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then compounded with what we deal with on a regular basis,
sure.
Not feeling human, not feeling a part of a real community, you know what I mean? Like, life is cheap at the end of the day sometimes,
I think you're a good example of, like, I think I said it the first time, of what I mean by hood politics, in the sense that, to your point, I use one of the kids from that I'm talking about now. He's shooting a video. He could shoot out 100. He could shoot out a text like, "Hey, I need 100 people on, like, Florence and Normandy." I'm like, "Nigga, where the riot started?
Right.
You're gonna shoot a video where the LA riot started, and you're just
Reginald Denny got beat up. You're gonna do it right there.
You're gonna shoot one right there, and 150 people show up, and 200 people show up, and I'm like, you're an organizer. Like, that's real power.
That's real power.
Yeah, I was like, politicians pay for that. That's called astroturfing. They pay to have people show up. I'm like, you can actually do it. That's real power.
Right.
So you could say, Pomona Unified School District, hey, with 100 of us, we need to pull up to this meeting to say we need this for our schools. You can do it, So and seeing, like I said, like seeing you evolve from, like, man, it's dope to have fans. I was a professional rapper, you know what I'm saying? But like, it's not what I'm here for.
Right.
There's a greater thing happening here. To wrap it up,
while I appreciate folks who enjoy my music, I think, like I said, the ultimate goal is to turn you into a comrade at some point. You know what I mean? Even if it's in your own life, know, like, because we need this change. We need to impact social change in some way, So,
in what ways could you? I'm gonna get soupy on you. Like, could you see? Obviously, just I looked up 750 Sacramento Street over here for the Supreme Court case about birthright citizenship with the Chinese immigrant in like 1896. It was fresh on my mind. So I was like, I know it's such a deep cut, but the story, I think it's next week's episode, but the story is like, this guy, was born in San Francisco at 750, comes back, going back and forth to see his family, and he comes back, and because of the Chinese Exclusion Act happened while he was gone. So he comes back
and they're like, yo,
you can't come in. He's like, I literally see my house. Like, I was born there. So just while that's being challenged again, and just, and just some of just the absurdity that's happening here, we're watching, like, I give an example of, like, if you buy it's Valentine's Day, you buy a bouquet of roses and you put them in a vase, the roses are dead. They're already dead.
Essentially, yeah.
It's just a matter of time. You know what I'm saying? And you're just slowing it down. So when I look at, like, American democracy, I'm like, it's been dead.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we're watching it be rebirthed into this, like, technocratic oligarchy. Like, and you voted for this. Like, I watched y'all choose this.
Yeah.
This man looked you in the face and was like, I'm finna lower your grocery prices. And none of y'all, like, nobody.
And he's like, here's Gulf of America.
Yeah, here's Gulf of America. This man had this. I'm like, none of y'all got an issue with that? Like, nobody, y'all good with this? No, those are Patriot groceries.
Yeah,
like,
it's
word?
wild.
I'm supposed to pay more now.
Right.
Like, what are you, anyway. So, in what ways are like you sort of kind of continuing on, finding hope? Like I said, everybody hear from me all the time. So I'm like, what ways are you kind of like finding joy or whatever?
I mean, that's a tough one.
Yeah, man.
You know, but I wasn't asleep during the Obama administration. I wasn't asleep during Joe Biden's administration.
Yeah.
That's, you know, my mentor, Joe Navidad, used to always say, same dog, different collar.
Facts.
You got to kill the dog, you know. So the goal has always been systemic change. And, you know, you just kind of have to dismantle it and separate it all. You know, the way we can do it as MCs, as artists, is the cultural aspect.
Yeah.
Each, you know, the cultural, the political, and the economic all have to support each other. That's why the music we hear is based on consumerism. You know what I mean? It upholds consumerism. It has to. So what we can do is change that narrative and start to, you know, make music that challenges that. And then eventually one of those is going to have to fall, or at least start to. And we were getting there, you know, there were small moments, you know, there were little moments where we were like, okay, cool, you know, we have socialist things in our government now. Social security is, you know,
fire department.
Right,
Hello,
exactly.
LA,
those kind of things. And, you know, so I find hope in small victories like that. And I do believe that this is not you know, I think when you're young, you want it to happen yesterday.
There it is.
And you don't understand it's going to be generational.
There it is.
You know, this is going to be generational change. So I'm patient.
Yeah.
It probably won't happen in our children's lifetime, but if they keep pushing, it's going to happen.
That's my thing. When I hear myself saying things my father said, and I'm like, wait.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. But at the same time, I can say, like you said, like that my felt life experience is different than his, you know? And then to me, like, I get excited when I'm seeing, like, again, like these younglings like be hungry and understand things, understanding nuances at a level I, you know, didn't at their age, where it's like, you know, for me it was like everything's a hammer. You feel me? It's all a nail. So just
straight up
beat the door down. They, you know, they got a little finesse. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you understand nuance earlier than I did, you know, and that.
Well, even in regard to art, like it's so independent. We're sitting here right now holding microphones. Like we couldn't picture that as a kid. Like I had to get a Tascam reel and like bring it to a studio in the valley and pay this dude $30 an hour so I can get one song out. You know, where now kids are recording in their bedroom and it's amazing. Yeah, people are putting. You know, you dream about being on TV
for sure.
Now I'm on YouTube. On your phone, you know what I mean? It's that simple.
Yeah. But yeah, man, that's good to hear, man. So
that's where I'm at. You know, that's kind of where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like that's what gives me hope. And
just pointing
being a dad. You know what I mean? Like that. That's another big thing for me. You know, being a dad and watching my kids and them changing just a little bit more. You know, just turning the needle just a little bit. You know. Yeah.
I love watching my children put together some sentences that I'm like, me and my wife look at each other like, kid's gonna be all right. It also helps to, I would say, because I honestly couldn't imagine like experiencing it like if my partner in life, like if my wife wasn't about the revolution, as I was, like we realized like as we've gotten older, like a lot of our interests have differed. You know what I'm saying? Like we're just not into a lot of the same stuff we used to be into. Where I'm like, she don't want to go see some underground rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm cool.
I'm good. You know what I mean? She wants to hike on Sundays. You feel me? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm not gonna. I'm entering my Theo age. I'm like buying tools and
straight up
figuring out how to fix shit. Like I never wanted to. Yard work was punishment. Like, kidding me? I'm not finna do that. Now it's
you
fun.
Like that John Deere.
You feel me? I'm like
kind of tight.
How many gears that thing got? But we understood that like with being like mission focused, like everything's been about mission and just vision, like being like that's whatever jobs we've chosen to support ourselves, whatever things we put our name on. It's like if it's not mission first, we just not into it. You know what I mean? Which meant that we was willing to sacrifice, you know, vacations. That's part of why she didn't come this trip, was just like money's got to go somewhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I see that with y'all too, like that. I mean, I wish you could give somebody advice like, yo, marry you a rider. You know what I'm saying? I just sometimes not like that, but I would say that that's something that's beautiful for y'all too, that like my wife and I look like from afar and are like, yeah, we understand that.
Word. Yeah, I appreciate my relationship. Yeah. You know, I appreciate her as a partner and as a co-parent. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we idealistically, there's things that we don't see eye to eye on all the time. You know what I mean? But is we have at least the foundation for how to have those conversations and those conflicts. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that about my relationship with her. And she's a great MC. I mean, I don't know. I think you are around more MCs than I am, but I'm really not. Like I'm alone. I'm in the house. I'm with the kids. Yeah. So rap for me, there was nothing really motivating me, but I live with somebody. So when she was recording her record, I'm like, man, I want to write some bars too, you know? That's kind of where this new record came from, was just me listening to her make Long Kiss Goodnight and it motivating me to be like, yeah, I want to get back to writing.
You know what? As a matter of fact, let's end on that. Like, so tell us about this album, which is the greatest album name ever. At first I thought Sharpest Tool in the Shed was the best ever. And then this man said, if you see someone stealing food, no, you didn't.
I think it definitely was birthed from me looking at the internet and looking at social media and seeing people just like stealing things and people shitting on them. Like, yo, this dude, this crackhead came in here and started taking shampoo. What? Yeah. He's taking shampoo, dog. Like, he's taking shampoo. This dude stealing steaks.
I was like,
he's
listen,
hungry, dog. Like, they're going to throw that out. You know what I mean?
If he had a little less melanin, you would call that foraging.
Straight up. There you go.
You understand what I'm saying?
There you
Scavenging.
go.
That's
Straight
what
up.
You'd call it foraging and survival.
And especially out here in the Bay that was inundated because, you know, they were really trying to build this, this is such a progressive city up here in the Bay. It's such a progressive area that conservatives really use this as like the target of like, this is why you can't have a progressive government because people are stealing and bipping cars and da-da-da. But they were failing to kind of recognize the underlying, you're taking, look at Oakland. Like you've taken all the teams away from Oakland. You've taken all the industry out of Oakland. You know what I mean? And then you're like, why are they stealing so much shit? Why are people poor?
There's nothing here.
Yeah, there's nothing here, you know? So that kind of birthed that, like, stop snitching. You know what I mean? Like, turn the other cheek. Like, it don't affect you. You know what I mean? Like, and then we can have the nuanced conversation. I've had comments on like, well, what about a small business? Sure, we can talk about that. That's
exactly.
But you should know if you listen to the record, that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And if you from the city, nobody's stealing from Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, nobody's
stealing from Mr. Johnson.
They're going into Walgreens and the Target.
That's where I'm going.
And they're that's where they're taking stuff.
Exactly.
And so that's where the title of the album comes from. And then I just wanted to kind of stream of consciousness, make music. But then there are things like Intifada, which, deals with the Palestinian situation. And, Lin-Manuel kind of messed it up for a lot of rappers because when I was writing it, I'm like, man, this is very Hamilton-ish. You know what I mean? Like, this sounds kind of corny, but I put it out anyway. I just put it on the table. I was like, let's just put it out there. So it's got a lot of dates on it and whatnot. So, but no, I really, I didn't think this record would have such a great reception. I thought it was going to be like a mixtape. I was calling it a mixtape. I was telling the label like, "Hey, I'm just putting out this mixtape." Blah, blah. And when it came out, it folks really messed with it. You know what I mean?
It was timely, man. It was like right on time, and it I think it cuts through a lot of times. I think even for us MCs that really want to say something, sometimes I found, which some of the motivation with the podcast too, was like my commitment to making a dope song sometimes gets in the way of what I'm trying to say. Word. So sometimes you just got to say it. You know what I mean? But I feel like
that's a great way to put it.
You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like it cut through in a way that it's like, oh no, he's saying it. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
And it's not, the rap didn't get in the way. Like, you feel me? Like,
I appreciate that.
And I asked, that's what I appreciated about it. I was like, no, he said it. And I also appreciate about like, because there's music I'm sitting on that, well, not sitting on, it's just in the pipeline of coming out to where I'm like, I don't understand why y'all can't just say it with your whole chest. Like, if this, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what y'all dancing around? Y'all got real quiet.
I think because people think they're gonna live forever.
Think so?
And I understand that my time is limited.
Yeah, man.
My time, that's something I can't get back.
Yeah.
I'm never going to get that back.
Yeah.
So I cherish all those moments. And at the same time, it also pushes me to say it with your fucking chest, dude. Like, just say it, bro. Like, and be open to having conversations. And that's the other thing is I think artists put themselves on this pedestal where they don't think they can have conversations with regular people. And if someone challenges you on it, have that conversation. I'm not talking about like in the comment section. I'm talking about like, I've had people come up to me at shows and say, hey, why you keep saying guys?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what?
Because that's, you know, but I have to have that conversation.
Yeah, for real.
And it challenges me to be like, yeah, maybe I am like isolating people or, you know,
genderizing.
Genderizing people by saying, guys, maybe people do feel a type of way. And I have to challenge myself on that. So I think as an artist, that's what we should be. You know, we're a cultural arm of something that's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not above all of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not informing the people. The people are informing us on how to make this music.
I'm a member of the community.
Right.
Yeah.
I just happen to be able to rap and make something palatable for you to hear. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you for your time, Bam.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man, it's Valentine's. You need to get to take care of your business before all of us get in trouble. Anyway, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
All
Love you, brother.
Love you too, bro. All right, now don't you hit stop on this pod. You better listen to these credits. I need you to finish this thing so I can get the download numbers, okay? So don't stop it yet. But listen, this was recorded in East Los Boyle Heights by your boy Propaganda. Tap in with me at prophiphop.com. If you're into cold brew coffee, we got Terraform Cold Brew. You can go there.com and use promo code HOOD, get 20% off, get yourself some coffee. This was mixed, edited, and mastered by your boy Matt Osowski, killing the beat softly. Check out his website, mattosowski.com. I'm gonna spell it for you because I know. mattosowski.com, mattosowski.com. He got more music and stuff like that on there, so go and check out the heat. Hood Politics is a member of Cool Zone Media, executive produced by Sophie Lichterman, part of the iHeartMedia Podcast Network. Your theme music and scoring is also by the one and only Matt Osowski, still killing the beat softly. So listen, don't let nobody lie to you. If you understand urban living, you understand politics. These people is not smarter than you. We'll see y'all next week.